Hey YouTube, it's Eric. This is going to be a fairly quick video. I was reading this article today on Newsweek, and if you're not aware, the Roman Catholic Jesuit puppet, total Jesuit puppet, U.S. President Joe Biden is going to be meeting with Pope Francis tomorrow, October 29th, Friday, October 29th, 2021. Where it comes out now that the Vatican is going to be canceling the live feed of the meeting. Would you look at that? Showing that the Vatican has not changed, you know, from how they were in the Dark Ages. They do not believe in freedom of speech whatsoever, and also they want to hide how much of a puppet Joe Biden is, uh, how much of a Vatican puppet he is, a total Vatican puppet. And that so we see here they're cutting the live feed. No other explanation. No, and they offer no explanation. Well, the explanation is, like I just said, Joe Biden is a total puppet who is a Trojan horse for the Vatican, acting as a foreign agent in the destruction and the planned controlled destruction of the U.S. In general, but the U.S. economy to usher in the Great Reset or Fourth Industrial Revolution, which lay Jesuit Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum openly say that the U.S. has to take a back seat in the Great Reset. It has to be a global community or a new world order. Of course, communist China has to take a bigger role, and we have to have the Chinese social credit system implemented in the West, and we're now seeing that with the digital vaccine ID QR code apps, and that's being incorporated into your digital wallet. So it's happening for sure. But we see the Vatican is offering no explanation for canceling the live feed of Biden meeting with Pope Francis, and this is happening tomorrow. So I'm just going to read to you this article here. I thought this was very interesting. Hey, how's it going? Thanks for tuning in, everyone. You see here we read the Vatican has not offered an explanation for why it canceled the planned live broadcast of U.S. President Joe Biden's meeting with Pope Francis on Friday, instead limiting coverage of the event to the arrival of Biden's motorcade at the Apostolic Palace, the Associated Press reported. Though the Vatican said it would give edited footage of the meeting to accredited media. Wow. Again, that's to the big mainstream media corporations that all toe the line and which are part of uh, the Roman Catholic establishment. Your Fox Newses, your MSNBCs, your CNNs, your ABCs, your PBSs. Look at that. So the Vatican is giving edited footage. Edited footage. So they're going to take out all the footage, which makes Joe Biden look like a total puppet of Jesuit Pope Francis. They're going to give edited footage to the accredited media. Wow. The move is the latest limit on media coverage of the Holy See. Of course, this is the same institution that lost the Inquisition. So what a surprise. We see though Biden has met Francis three times before, and actually, there's a video. If you want to see how much of a puppet Joe Biden is, I put a video that Matrix the Beast System made up on my channel. You guys should all subscribe to Matrix the Beast System. I link his YouTube in the description of this video. We title it Roman Catholic U.S. President Joe Biden praises his master, Jesuit Pope Francis in Rome. You're going to see how much of a puppet he is here. They want to hide how much of a puppet he is. That's why they're canceling the live feed. But look at this. Look what Jesuit. This is when he received the Lateran medal, which is the oldest medal given out by the Catholic Church in the United States. It was started giving out the medal in 1883 it's given by Roman Catholic Notre Dame University. But here's Biden here receiving the medal, talking about Pope Francis.
When I lost my bow and soul with the Holy Father, he not only consoled me and my family when I lost my bow.
Yeah, it's very interesting too, because I think Zach Hubbard pointed this out. Joe Biden, I believe, was 46 years old when he passed, and then Jesuit puppet Joe Biden then becomes the 46th president of the United States. Very interesting, to say the least. But we continue.
But when I met him representing the United States at his inauguration,
he's talking about meeting Pope Francis. And then Roman Catholic Biden, U.S. president, has met Pope Francis 3 times already. This will be the 4th. First time, though, acting as U.S. president. And this is the first time he's meeting Pope Francis acting as U.S. president. They're censoring the footage of the meeting.
And I walked up with other heads of state to be formally introduced to him in the Basilica. And Monsignor, who I just spent time with earlier because I had been meeting with Pope Benedict, I hope I wasn't the reason he resigned, but turned to introduce me to the Holy Father. And before he could, the Holy Father put out his hand and said, "Mr. Vice President, you are always welcome here. You're
always welcome here.
Always welcome here." Think about him. That's the message he has sent to the world. It's the reason why.
Think about the man running the biggest child pedophile mafia in the world. Think of him. The man who promoted Boston Archbishop Cardinal Law after he covered up the pedophilia in Boston for all those years. Think of him. Think of him. He gave Archbishop Levada in San Francisco a promotion after covering up all the pedophilia cases in San Francisco. And those pedophilia cases in San Francisco, overseen by the Archbishop of the San Francisco Archdiocese, Levada. The San Francisco DA at the time was none other than Kamala Harris, the current Vice President of the United States. Kamala Harris, and this is virtually wiped off of her public information on her terms of her biography, her education background. I have the video of her admitting to this, but she was actually educated at Jesuit University of San Francisco. That's where Harris went to study for the bar. I have that video on my channel. You guys should go watch that. It's a whole speech she gave at the Jesuit St. Ignatius Church in San Francisco, and I got it from the Kamala Harris YouTube channel. It's right in plain sight.
Why? He is the most respected man in the world.
Jesuit Pope, the most respected man in the world. To active collaborator in the Argentine Dirty War, the most respected man in the world.
As I speak here today, not just among Catholics, but Muslims, Hindus, other Christians, the Jewish community.
Of course, the ecumenical movement, the New World Order, all faiths under the fist of the Pope.
That's not hyperbole. He literally is the most respected man in the world.
He literally is. So do you think who do you think Joe Biden's serving? Do you think he's following, for instance, the U.S. Constitution, or is he following the World Economic Forum's Great Reset, which the World Economic Forum openly admits that the Great Reset is modeled off of Jesuit Pope Francis's encyclical Laudato Si? Ask yourself that question.
You are always welcome here. And I believe the message he was urging the Congress was to extend to everyone, we who hold high public office, to extend our hand as Americans and say, you're always welcome here. I was raised by parents who are the embodiment of Catholic social doctrine that I was taught by the Sisters of St. Joseph and the Norbertine priests in high school.
Actually, this book here, you can read this book on my archive.org page, Catholic Power Today by Aver Manhattan. I scanned this book in from the University of Toronto Library probably 3 years ago now, 2.5 years ago. We see here, and then so this story I'm reading to you about the Vatican censoring the feed of its meeting with Joe Biden is happening right in sync with the G20 summit in Rome, of all places. That's where the G20 summit is this year. It's in Rome. It's at the Vatican, the G20 summit. We see here Aver Manhattan pointed out in his book Catholic Power Today that the Catholic Power Today, as yesterday and tomorrow, has one supreme objective: the Catholicization of the human race. To attain this, the Catholic Church will suffer no obstacles, be deterred by no barriers, tolerate no enemies, rivals, competitors, or even friends. You see here they're cutting the live feed. They give no explanation for cutting the live feed with the meeting with the President of the United States. You see, they tolerate no barriers, no enemies, rivals, competitors, or even friends. Her clarion call to ecumenism, reunion, and unity is nothing but a specious screen behind which to hide such millenarian ambition. It cannot be otherwise. Her aim has never changed in the past, does not change in the present, and will not change less in the future. There you go. We continue here. Though Biden has met Francis 3 times before, this will be their first encounter with Biden as president, AP reported. Viewers won't be able to watch live when Biden greets Francis in the palace throne room or when they sit down in Francis's library to commence their private meeting when live coverage would typically stop. Biden's meeting with Francis comes during a point of contention over the president and the church. Some conservative U.S. bishops argue that Biden, the second U.S. Catholic president, shouldn't be allowed to receive communion because of his support for abortion rights, according to AP. And this is just a total psyop. I would read this article here on my computer, but the Wall Street Journal, for some reason, it's not. It's a paid service. For some reason, on my computer, though, I can't read the article, but on my phone, I can. So in a quote from this article here, how support for abortion became Kennedy dogma, we see that it was actually Jesuit priests who put forward the pro-abortion political movement in the United States in the 1960s, going all the way back to the early 20th century. You had Jesuits writing about being pro-abortion, and that's quoted in even Theodore Greisinger's classic book on the history of the Jesuits, written in 1885. So that's the 19th century, actually. You had Jesuits being pro-abortion. But in this article here, I'm just going to read this off my phone. In some cases, church leaders actually started providing, quote, cover for Catholic pro-choice politicians who wanted to vote in favor of abortion rights. And you just hear this supposed, rift between the conservative bishops and Biden is just a massive psychological operation. At a meeting at the Kennedy compound in Hyannisport, Massachusetts, on a hot summer day in 1964, this is 1 year after the Kennedy assassination, and we see how, and again, another to pacify the Kennedy family after the Jesuits murdered John F. Kennedy, the Jesuits gave Jackie Kennedy a Jesuit priest as her confessor, Richard McSorley, S.J., who then became Bill Clinton's personal Jesuit, U.S. President Bill Clinton, who proudly boasts that he was educated by a Jesuit priest at Georgetown University. I have the footage of him saying that at the Denver airport, of all places. That same airport with all the Freemasonic symbolism all over it. The Jesuits created modern Freemasonry, and that speech was in 1994. That's on my YouTube channel. So you see it at a meeting at the Kennedy compound in Hyannisport, Massachusetts, on a hot summer day in 1964. The Kennedy family and its advisors and allies were coached by leading theologians and Catholic college professors on how to accept and promote abortion with the, quote, clear conscience. The quote, former Jesuit priest, Albert Johnson, emeritus professor of ethics at the University of Washington, recalls this meeting in his book, The Birth of Bioethics. He writes about how he joined with the Reverend Joseph Fuchs, a Jesuit, moral theologian, the Reverend Robert Drinan, the dean of Boston College Law School. Jesuit Robert Drinan, of course, then became a United States congressman from the state of Massachusetts. And that barely gets any press coverage, of course, because it's the Roman Catholic establishment media that covers up the criminality and influence of the Roman Catholic Church in a modern American society, world society for that matter. We had a Jesuit priest as a sitting congressman in the United States. I wonder if the Jesuits are influenced in American politics. Of course they are. It never gets brought up. Again, that's just an amazing fact. He had literally a sitting Jesuit priest, Reverend Robert Drinan S.J. He was a pro-abortion Jesuit. while being in the United States Congress. You see right there. Jesuit priest, Democratic U.S. representative from Massachusetts, professor at Jesuit Georgetown University Law Center. He was a member in the House for 10 years. You know, and I got footage on my YouTube channel. Jesuit priests routinely do give prayers during House pro forma sessions in the U.S. House of Representatives. The Capitol building modeled off of St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. That's why you have the Roman obelisk right there in Washington, D.C., the District of Catholics in between Virginia and Maryland, Virgin Mary. And again, Robert Drinan, the Jesuit priest, congressman, was pro-abortion. We're going back here. So the meeting was between Jesuit Joseph Fuchs, Jesuit Robert Drinan, Jesuit Gilles Milhaven, Jesuit Richard McCormick, and Jesuit Charles Curran to enable the Kennedy family to redefine support for abortion. Mr. Jesuit Johnson writes that the Hyannisport Colloquium was influenced by the position of another Jesuit. It's like a Jesuit jamboree, as the Sydney Morning Herald pointed out on Jesuit-educated Tony Abbott's government in Australia. The Reverend John Courtney Murray, a position that, quote, so this is the argument. So this is an amazing Jesuit doublespeak argument here that says that even though abortion is morally wrong, it's okay to have it become law. So here's what Jesuit John Courtney Murray says. He, quote, distinguished between the moral aspects of the issue and the feasibility of enacting a legislation about that issue. It was the consensus at the Hyannisport Conclave that Catholic politicians, quote, might tolerate legislation that would permit abortion under certain circumstances if political efforts to repress this moral error led to greater perils to social peace and order. So again, so just the point being that the Catholic Church is not against abortion. I even have it documented on my website. There's the German Pax Bank scandal, where it came out that the Catholic Church in Germany was invested in abortion pills and armaments. They're actually involved. They're investing in nuclear submarines, tobacco, investing in fighter jets, of course. The pharmaceutical company Wyeth, which makes abortion pills, the Catholic Church in Germany was heavily invested in. Hundreds of thousands of euros. Okay, so we get back to the story though here. So again, point being, the U.S. conservatives' rift with Joe Biden is a total psyop. And you see a photo there of Biden with Jesuit Pope Francis. And there you see in the description, the Vatican on Thursday abruptly canceled the planned live broadcast of President Joe Biden's meeting with Pope Francis, pulling the plug on the eagerly awaited audience and consolidating the limits on independent information coming out of the Holy See for the past 18 months. Yeah, the reason they're canceling this too, they're going to have lots of in-depth discussions, how to implement the fourth industrial revolution in the United States. Bringing in the digital currency, universal basic income, creating a more of a police state, the biometrics, vaccine passports. All that will be discussed. Though any document that emerges from the bishop's upcoming annual fall convention is not expected to mention Biden by name, it's possible there could be a clear message of rebuke. And again, that's total BS. Francis has strongly upheld the church's opposition to abortion. And here's some Jesuit doublespeak from Pope Francis here. He's a master of it. Francis has strongly upheld the church's opposition to abortion, calling it, quote, murder. But he said that bishops should be pastors, not politicians. Don't it's murder, but don't do anything about it, though. It's okay that it's law. It's murder, but don't do anything to stop the murder. Of course. The Vatican has provided live television coverage for the visits of major heads of state for years and has scheduled such coverage Friday for Biden and before him for South Korean President Moon Jae-in, another puppet who is in Rome for the Group of 20 meeting this weekend. I mentioned how this is synced up with the G20 meeting at the Vatican. Here's a little post here from Climate Diplomacy. The Group of 20 G20 Leaders Summit 21 convenes in October 2021 in Rome, Italy, of all places. For 2021, the G20 and again, they're going to be implementing all of Pope Francis' encyclicals will be implemented here. Just read Laudato Si. Global government, climate change. Social credit, sacrificing individualism. I covered in a video 2 videos ago. I did. Jesuit Pope Francis just last week said that we need to censor conspiracy theorists and hate speech off the internet. Again, because there will be no dissent and opposition, under the Fourth Industrial Revolution and Great Reset. This is going back to the Dark Ages, in the 13th century, where the Roman Catholic Church was all powerful. And if you were a dissenter back in the Dark Ages, what happened to you? You're burned at the stake. If they caught you reading a book, if you were reading back in that's a big no-no. You're going to the stake right away. You're trying to educate yourself. You're a heretic for doing that. We see here the Group of 20 Leaders Summit 2021 convenes in Rome, Italy. They will discuss broad interconnected pillars of action. New World Order, people, planet, and prosperity. PPP. PPP loans. If you look into the COVID PPP loans, the Catholic Church got over $5 billion from the PPP loans that were supposed to go to small businesses, which is all part of this Great Reset. The small businesses will be crushed and be replaced by the big Roman-controlled global multinational monopolies. The Roman Catholic Church is the mother of all monopolies. Why do you think the Standard Oil was modeled off of it? And I did a whole video on that you guys should check out if you haven't seen. Again, the $5 billion that the Catholic Church got that was stolen, that was money that was supposed to go to small businesses, and that's roughly what the Catholic Church has paid in payouts in settlements with regards to pedophile priests in the United States for the last 35 years. So by one coup d'etat of the pen, they broke even for 35 years of sex abuse payments and settlements and litigation from stealing money that was supposed to go to small businesses by the artificially created phony crisis mastered by the Jesuits. I have the video on my channel. Arturo Sosa, the Black Pope, said that, remember, it is not an accident, the COVID-19. It is not an accident. And he said, we can't have this go away now because there's too many interests behind this. And that's none other than the Black Pope, the Jesuit general, saying that. That video is on my channel. Just check it out. Here, the Leaders Summit is the climax of the G20 process. In addition to the summit, ministerial meetings, working groups, and special events are organized throughout the year. You see, they're also going to be discussing, quote, the CV-19 pandemic. They're also to provide equitable worldwide access to diagnostics, therapeutics, and vaccines. That's creating a worldwide biomedical police state while building up resilience to future health-related shocks. The G20 is made up of 19 countries and the European Union. You see the countries there. My Jesuit fiefdom, Canada, is represented here. We see here live broadcasts are particularly important. It's going back to the story of the Vatican cutting off the live feed with Biden. Live broadcasts are particularly important because the Vatican hasn't allowed independent photographers and journalists into papal audiences since the start of the CV-19 pandemic. The Vatican has continued to cite the pandemic as a reason to deny external media access to the beginnings and ends of papal audiences with visiting leaders, even though they are allowed into other papal events. It is during those moments in the Pope's library that reporters can view the gifts that are exchanged, watch as the formal photograph is taken, and overhear remarks as the leaders arrive and depart to get a sense of how the Pope and his guests have gotten along. And you should watch another video of Matrix the Beast System that I put on my channel. This was going into how European monarchs are Vatican puppets. He actually has there's footage in that video of the Spanish delegation going to meet the Pope. I believe this was in 2016, or I believe it's in that video. But one of the Spanish ministers jokes with Pope Francis in that clip that he went to a Jesuit school. And Jesuit Pope Francis literally says, "Oh, then you carry the virus then." He literally says that, and you can see that on the video on my channel about European monarchs being Vatican puppets. Only the Pope's official photographer and the Vatican video journalists are now allowed in. Again, because as Avraham Manhattan wrote here in Catholic Imperialism and World Freedom, one of the worst liberties of modern society is that permitting the people to read what they like, according to the Catholic Church. That is something which every good Catholic must genuinely execrate. Whenever reminded of the liberty of the modern press, the popes are always tempted to lose their pontifical patience. And this is a quote from Pope Leo XIII. Similar to liberty of worship is that worst of liberties, never sufficiently execrated or abhorred, liberty of the press, end quote, said Leo XIII. I wonder with all the censorship going on at YouTube, if that has something to do with the fact that the head of YouTube's culture and trends, Kevin Alcoa, is Jesuit trained at Boston College. Huh. I wonder if all the inflation in the United States has something to do that the chairman of the Federal Reserve Bank, Jerome Powell, is Jesuit trained at Georgetown University, has his doctorate there. This does not mean, though, that other liberties can be tolerated. Perish the thought. Like religious freedom and freedom of the press, they must equally be curtailed and even wholly abolished, because, quote, all liberty is a delirium and a pestilence. A pestilence. Liberty is a pestilence, according to Leo XIII. There is no healthy man's delirium, commented His Holiness. Quote, all delirium is that of a sick man. There is no praiseworthy and harmless plague. Every plague is deadly. Hence, it is never a decent thing to introduce liberty into a civil community. Wow, I'm going to repeat that. Hence, it is never a decent thing to introduce liberty into a civil community. Just think of this last 2 years with the CV-19. It is only permissible to tolerate it in certain cases in the same way that a pest is tolerated. Wow. Roman Catholic Joe Biden, Jesuit Joe, has a long track record of eroding liberties in the United States. I have a video of him on my channel basically bragging about how he drafted a bill back in 1994 that was identical to the Police State Patriot Act, which basically shreds the Bill of Rights in half. That was ramrodded through the legislature after the false flag 9/11 quote attacks. The official Patriot Act was the architect of the Patriot Act being Jesuit Georgetown professor Veet Din. But Biden brags that he introduced a similar bill back in the 90s. And of course, Biden was involved with drafting the civil asset forfeiture legislation, which is literally going back to the Inquisition in America, where you're determined to be guilty before proven innocent. Doesn't matter. We'll just seize all your assets. You got some cash on you? That's ours. Just like how it was in with the Portuguese Inquisition. Biden was involved with that, the crime bill, et cetera, et cetera. Joe Biden's disastrous track record is very well known. Supported, all of the wars in the Middle East. We continue. Vatican Correspondence Association has protested the cancellation of such pool access, and they protested supposedly. And several media outlets, including AP, quote, formally complained. You formally complained. Do you think the Vatican's do you think they're gonna act now that they've received a complaint from the AP? Really? Oh, that's cute. Same institution that wholeheartedly backed Hitler and the Nazis. Oh, but we're just going to complain to them though, and hopefully they change their mind from a complaint. Really, how naive is the Associated Press about the history of the Roman Catholic Church? Just amazing. So they formally complained about Thursday's cutoff of the live Biden Pope broadcast and asked for an explanation. Of course, the Vatican didn't give an explanation. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki was asked about the limited media access to Biden's audience and said that the administration was, quote, working through every lever we have. Because we're total puppets of the Vatican. So whatever our masters at the Vatican tell us to do, we'll do. But we're kind of on a short leash here. Biden is traveling with his own pool of reporters who would normally be allowed into the Pope's library for the beginning and end of the audience. There's another quote from Jen Psaki. Jen Psaki has been, I can just tell, she's been thoroughly schooled in the art of Jesuitical probabilism. No doubt about that. She's a great liar. And she learned from the best. There's no better liars than the Jesuits. Bar none, not even a close second place. We believe in the value of the free press. Really? So this is again and I told you about Jesuitical doublespeak. When they say we believe in the value of the free press, we show you historical documentation. The Vatican has condemned the free press to hell, essentially. It's also condemned in Pope Pius IX Syllabus of Errors. But what Jen Psaki is saying here, we believe in a censored press. I literally have a video of her saying that, admitting to in a press conference, that the Biden administration is working with Facebook, which I guess is now called Meta. I'll have to look into some of that Jesuitism there with the name change. Facebook being a startup front of Catholics in Action or the CIA. But I literally have a video of Jen Psaki saying that the Biden administration is censoring posts for Facebook. And here she's saying we believe in the value of a free press. Classic Jesuit doublespeak. And then she continues, we believe in the value of ensuring you have access to the president's trips and his visits overseas. Amazing. How many times already has Biden walked out on reporters in his 9 months in office? Noting that Biden was a guest in the Vatican, the host, she added, quote, I can't offer you a guarantee because we're total puppets and we're just going to do what the Vatican tells us. And the Vatican is telling us to cut the feed. But I can guarantee you we will continue to advocate. Again, here's in the photo here, the Vatican has not offered an explanation for why it cut the planned live broadcast of U.S. President Joe Biden's upcoming meeting with Pope Francis. And again, because they're hiding how much of a puppet he is. He's a Trojan horse sent from Rome for the controlled takedown of the United States to usher in the Great Reset, Fourth Industrial Revolution, where the U.S. has to take a back seat. Instead, limiting coverage of the event to the arrival of Biden's motorcade at the Apostolic Palace. Above, there in the photo, Pope Francis addresses the crowd from the window of the Apostolic Palace overlooking St. Peter's Square during his Sunday Angelus prayer at the Vatican. And of course, the National Security Agency says that the key on their logo that the eagle grips is the key of St. Peter, the supposed first pope, and that's their key to security. So it's Romerica fully, and we're seeing that here, and they want to hide the fact that it's Romerica from the American masses, and that's why this live feed is being cut, because this is something that could get spread virally on various social media platforms like Twitter, for instance. Because it's going to be revealed in their even their video interaction with each other that Joe Biden is a soulless puppet of the Vatican. So and they want to hide that. I think that was all of the article there. I'm going to read some of the comments here. Well, Hannah said, "Are you guys Protestants?" I'm not a professing Protestant now. I resonate with Protestants. Absolutely, the word protest being in the word Protestant, and they're and Protestants today have been totally, I'm talking about mainline Protestant churches have been totally co-opted and taken over by the Vatican. You can actually see videos of one by one leaders of Protestant churches bowing down and kissing the Pope's ring. The supposed, the Vatican has created all sorts of different various Christian sects, like the Mormon Church, for instance, to divide and weaken Protestantism. Because when you're divided, you're conquered. That's kind of the theory, and that's why I think the Vatican, throughout the history of the Reformation, it was in their interest to have Protestantism break off into so many different sects, because then those different sects couldn't come together to resist the Catholic Church. Of course, there's that clip of Tony Palmer saying that the protest is over. Prominent Protestant pastor Tony Palmer in the U.S. And for me personally, I grew up in the United Church here in Canada. That's a Protestant denomination of church. And, just through my upbringing, I was going to church on Sundays fairly frequently, but then I stopped going, let's say, when I was around 14 or 15 years old. Absolutely. The Antichrist is here in the office of the papacy. Absolutely. And if you want to see just how controlled the U.S. government is, I put this on my community page recently. Watch the standing ovation that they gave Jesuit Pope Francis back in 2015. It's a very chilling video. Here I titled here, Antichrist Jesuit Pope Francis gets standing ovation as he enters the U.S. House chamber. As Lanchester accurately said, the vicar of Satan from the unholy see. They should be throwing cabbages, not clapping. But no, I think that's all for this one, guys. Peace and love, and I'll catch you on the next video.